items on the agenda right now deal with flood relief. Second is during the regular session, there are about 200 pieces of legislation that get passed every single month. I'm asking for only 18 items to be passed during this 30-day special session. They know full well that they have every capability of addressing all these pieces of legislation. And what these Democrats have done, they have turned their back on the people of the state of Texas. For one, it is gutless for Democrats to cut and run. That's anti-Texan. Ever since the time of the Alamo, Texans have stood and fought their ground. Here, Democrats are fleeing like a bunch of chickens.
So apparently Democrats think they can just run away and ignore their jobs completely, but Governor Greg Abbott isn't having that at all. Watch how he calls them out for being gutless and reminds everyone what it means to be a Texan in the first place. Let's go.
Politics lead. Texas State House Democrats once again stayed out of their own state today, delaying the unusual mid-decade Republican redistricting effort in that state. We're now in week 2 of this standoff over the new congressional maps for U.S. House seats that could give Republicans at least 5 additional seats in next year's midterm elections, thus staving off any potential midterm losses for Trump and the GOP. Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott today said that law enforcement officers are scouring the state of Texas to try and arrest any state house Democrats who are avoiding their business in Austin. But today, the leader of the State House Democratic Caucus said his party will keep denying a quorum to be called unless Governor Abbott prioritizes flood relief legislation over redistricting.
If Governor Abbott says we will take care of the people of the state of Texas first, yes. If he makes that commitment today, we'll be back.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott joins us now. So, Governor, 4 items related to flood relief are on the agenda. When you call the next special session, would you consider removing redistricting from the agenda in order to pass this very, very starkly needed relief for Texans?
So a couple of things. One is the first 4 items on the agenda right now deal with flood relief. Second is during the regular session, there are about 200 pieces of legislation that get passed every single month. I'm asking for only 18 items to be passed during this 30-day special session. They know full well that they have every capability of addressing all these pieces of legislation. And what these Democrats have done, they have turned their back on the people of the state of Texas. For one, it is gutless for Democrats to cut and run. That's anti-Texan. Ever since the time of the Alamo, Texans have stood and fought their ground. Here, Democrats are fleeing like a bunch of chickens. Second, they can address both the redistricting map as well as all these other issues that are so important to their fellow Texans. Know this, and that is average Texans who are watching this show, they have to show up to work. If they don't show up to work, they could get fired. These Democrats think they are above that. These Democrats think, well, they can take the day off, they can take the month off, they can jet set across the country, ignoring their duty. By the Constitution, they are required to meet and consider and act on every bill that becomes before them. They're failing to fulfill their Constitution.
And this is where Abbott lands his first significant blow. Jake Tapper tries to frame the Democrats as quite principled, as if they're somehow doing the noble thing by leaving the state to block redistricting. But Abbott flips that argument on its head, and he points out that the obvious truth: everyday Texans don't get to just skip work when they feel like it. If they do so, they just get fired and have no job, as simple as that. And why should politicians get to play by a different set of rules? Abbott calls their behavior anti-Texan, gutless, as well as cowardly, a quite accurate description in my opinion. And he says they've turned their backs on the people of Texas, and he is right. Their job is to debate, to vote, and to legislate, and running away to another state doesn't solve anything. And it's just a stunt, and when Abbott compares it to Texans at the Alamo who stood their ground, it drives the point home completely. You can practically see like Jake squirm in his chair, because Abbott isn't just defending his policy, he is defending Texan pride as well as common sense, and that is the right thing to do.
Who are not Texans, as the minority party with a very small minority, they argue that their only way to stop this redistricting effort is to deny Republicans in the State House a quorum. So that's why they do That's why they're doing what they're doing, just to provide their explanation. The Texas Tribune reports that in June, you told Texas Republican delegation in Congress that you were reluctant to add redistricting to the legislative agenda in Austin. The Tribune says that President Trump then called you to discuss redistricting, and you agreed to put it on the special session agenda. Would you have gone forward with redistricting if President Trump had not personally gotten involved?
I've been interested in for a long time. First of all, I've been involved in redistricting litigation for more than 20 years now. Second, one thing that spurred all of this is a federal court decision that came out last year. By the way, a case that was filed by Democrats. The federal court decision that came out last year said that Texas is no longer required to have coalition districts. And as a result, we had drawn maps with coalition districts in it. Now we wanted to remove those coalition districts and draw them in ways that, in fact, turned out to provide more seats for Hispanics. For example, 4 of the districts are predominantly Hispanic. It just coincides it's going to be Hispanic Republicans elected to those seats. One thing that's happened in the state of Texas is the Hispanic community, a lot of it, have decided they're no longer with the Democrats who believe in open border policies, who believe in going against our law enforcement, who believe that men should play in women's sports. And they instead align with the Republicans. What we want to do is to draw districts that give those Hispanics and African Americans in the state of Texas the ability to elect their candidate of choice.
Well, that's not really, I mean, you're doing this to give Trump and Republicans in the House of Representatives 5 additional seats, right? I mean, that's the motivation, is to stave off any midterm election losses.
Again, to be clear, Jake, the reason why we're doing this is because of that court decision. Texas is now authorized under law that changed, that was different than in 2021 when we last did redistricting. Under new law, as well as new facts that surfaced in the aftermath of the Trump election, showing that many regions of the state that historically had voted Democrat.
Where Jake tries his classic CNN move. Link everything back to Trump. He brings up reports that Abbott only put redistricting on the agenda after Trump supposedly has pressured him into doing it, and the implication is obvious. Abbott isn't acting on principle, he's just doing Trump's bidding. But watch what happens now. Abbott doesn't get flustered. Instead, he calmly explains that he's been dealing with redistricting issues for more than 20 years now, and that's what recent federal court decisions actually opened the door for these new maps. And then he takes it further, pointing out that Hispanic voters across Texas are increasingly rejecting the Democrats' radical agenda as it is right now. They don't want open borders, they don't want to defund the police, and they don't want men competing in women's sports. So when these voters flip Republican, they deserve representation that reflects their choice, and that's not about Trump, that's about the people of Texas. And Abbott takes what Jake tries to spin as a weakness and turns it into a strength, into his biggest strength, exposing the fact that Democrats are losing their grip on communities they have taken for granted for many, many decades.
That state legislators in Texas denying the majority party a quorum can be fined and can even be arrested. But now you and your administration are taking the unusual step of asking for Democratic leader Gene Wu, who we played a clip from a little while ago, to be actually removed from office. What gives you the right to override the will of his voters who elected?
The people who elected him are not being met right now. The people who elected him, as well as the other Democrats who've run from their duty, they didn't elect them to run off to Illinois. They elected them to go to Austin, Texas, and cast votes as required by the Constitution. What I have the authority to do as governor is to require these members of the legislature to follow the Constitution, which is very clear on its face, where it says that these legislators must act on bills before them. They're refusing to perform their constitutional duty, and that's exactly why I filed that lawsuit in the Texas Supreme Court, and the Texas Supreme Court has required Gene Wu to respond to that, and the Texas Supreme Court is considering that right now. And what I'm seeking to do in that case is to have Gene Wu removed from office for failing to perform his constitutional requirement.
So your state had a congresswoman, Kay Granger, who tragically developed dementia, and then in the middle of her, I guess, second year in office, in her final term, She and her family just checked her into a dementia center in Texas, and nobody represented that congressional district for like 6 to 8 months or something. And I don't recall you.
And this part is critical because Jake tries to corner Abbott with a moral argument here. If Democrats were elected by their voters, how can you just justify trying to remove them from office? Yeah, it's insane. But Abbott doesn't blink here. He reminds Jake and everyone watching that Texans didn't elect lawmakers to take vacation in Illinois, and they elected them to show up in Austin and do their jobs as they should. And Abbott explains that as governor, he has the authority to enforce the Texas Constitution, and the Constitution clearly requires legislators to show up and act on bills. This isn't about punishing voters in any sort, it's about holding lawmakers accountable when they abandon their posts because they just feel like it. And Abbott's comparison is devastating. When ordinary Texans don't show up to work, they of course lose their job as any other person would. So why should these Democrats, who are being paid with taxpayer money, get a free pass? That's the type of plain-spoken logic that hits home for everyday people, and Jake knows it and uses it correctly.
To apply the Texas Constitution to these members of the Texas House of Representatives. With regard to members of Congress, that's going to be up to the congressional delegation and to the federal laws of which the state would have no control over. What I do have control over, Jake, and that is I called a special session, I put items on the agenda, and by Texas law, those runaway Democrats are required to act on that agenda. They're failing to do their duty, so there's a violation of state law that allows me to seek the removal of those who've abdicated their responsibility. Let's play this out. If they do not get removed by this court, this process is going to continue. I'm going to call special session after special session after special session. They could remain in hiding for literally years, tying the hands of the state of Texas from performing essential government needs. That cannot be allowed, and that's exactly why I should prevail in my lawsuit to have this Democrat removed from office, because they are denying Texas the ability to conduct business.
I mean, not entirely, though, right? Because, I mean, there are filing deadlines for candidates in September and November, and then in March, of course, would be the primaries in Texas. So they really, I mean, I'm not advocating this, but they really only need to wait you out until the fall.
Yeah. Sorry, Jake, that's not the case. Because I can call a special session at any time to have these districts redrawn. And even if we get to and beyond the filing deadline, we are still going to redraw these maps. And before we've done this, what we can do again, and that is have two different elections, one for all the other candidates on the ballot, one for members of Congress. And that's exactly what we'll do this time. If they think all they have to do is wait it out until November, December, they're wrong. I'm going to do this for the next 2 years. And they're going to have to basically take up residency in Illinois. They might as well start voting in Illinois.
As a bigger picture item, which is what's unusual about this is that you're attempting to do it in 2025 as opposed to waiting till the end of the decade, as normally is when the redistricting takes place. You've explained the Supreme Court decision that led you to do this. But what's going on, obviously, is not happening in Texas. It's not happening in a vacuum. We have Democrats in California and New York and other states saying, well, if Governor Abbott does this in Texas, we're going to add 5 Democratic seats. Are you not worried at all about a redistricting, gerrymandering arms race going on? And theoretically, is it not just better for voters to be picking their politicians instead of politicians to be picking their voters through gerrymandering?
Blue states, they've already gerrymandered. Look at the map of Illinois. Look at the map of California, New York, and Massachusetts, and so many other blue states. They gerrymandered a long time ago. They got nothing left with regard to what they can do. And know this, if California tries to gerrymander 5 more districts, listen, Texas has the ability to eliminate 10 Democrats in our state. We can play that game more than they can because they have fewer Republican districts in their states.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott, don't be a stranger. Thanks for popping by.
So by this point, Jake Tapper is desperate to land a shot, so he shifts the conversation to gerrymandering, and he warns Abbott that pushing these new maps could spark an arms race with blue states like California and New York, and adding more Democratic seats in retaliation. But Abbott doesn't just brush it off, he flips the argument back on Jake as he should, and reminds him that those blue states already gerrymandered their maps years ago. And look at Illinois, look at California, as well as New York. The Democrats drew maps that carved the Republican districts very long ago, and nobody at CNN batted an eye. So why is it a sudden crisis when Texas plays by the same rules? And Abbott goes even further, pointing out that Texas has the power as well as the possibilities to eliminate up to 10 Democrat seats, far more than blue states could hope to gain from it. And that's when you can see Jake's face. It says it all. He knows he has been outmaneuvered completely. And this wasn't just an interview, it was a masterclass in staying calm under pressure on the one side and turning every attack into an opportunity to go on offense. And that's wonderful.